Right, I've got 6 p.m. Hello, welcome everyone to the March 13th regular school board meeting of the Granite Falls School Board. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please stand with me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Today in attendance, we have Director Kincaid, Director Dane, myself, Director Carey, our superintendent, as well as our fabulous 2 school representatives, Ariel and Danica. Happy to have everybody here. I'd like to make a motion to excuse Director Ledoux as well as Director Veach. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Standing. All right, moving on to item 2A. This is Education Support Professionals Week. And we have a proclamation given to us by our Governor Jay Inslee. It's going to be read by the fabulous Director Kincaid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As you said, this is from the state of Washington. Proclamation. Whereas education support professionals are involved in nearly every aspect of education, maintaining buildings and grounds, preparing and serving meals, keeping school facilities clean and orderly, assisting in the classroom, providing over 60% of all instructional hours to special education students, English language learners, and opportunity gap students, performing and conducting research activities, providing information technology and media services, administrative support functions, and safe transportation, creating a secure and healthy environment, and many other specialized services. And whereas more than 62,000 education support professionals work with and help students at Washington's universities, colleges, and public schools are the backbone of our public education system and deserve recognition and thanks for the outstanding work they do for this state. And whereas education support professionals are instrumental in fulfilling the state's responsibility to educate all students, and by supporting the learning environment, they serve as crucial partners with teachers, parents, administrators, and school boards. Now, therefore, I, Jay Inslee, Governor of the State of Washington, do hereby proclaim March 2024 as Education Support Professionals Month in Washington, and I encourage all people in our state to join me in this special observance. Signed on the 15th of January 2024 by Governor Jay Inslee.
Thank you, Director Kincaid. And I know we have some, I still call them classified. I know the term has changed, but I know we have some classified staff in the room. So thank you.
Yes.
I can tell you guys directly, I really appreciate you. Well said, in the backbone of our system. So thank you for everything that you do. Anything else on that? Okay, we'll move on to item 2B, board comments. Ariel, actually, do you mind if we start with you? I know you had some great updates.
Right now at Crossroads, our senior project night is coming up from 5 to 7 p.m. on March 21st. Our senior projects are where seniors choose a career to research and then they present it, and that is welcome for all who would like to show up.
Thank you so much, Ariel. Appreciate that. Danny, do you have anything?
We're registering for classes for next year, and our spring sports just started. So we have a softball game tonight. There's a track meet tomorrow and a baseball game on Friday.
Outstanding. Appreciate it, Danny. Just going to the end. Danny, you have anything?
Well, yeah, I got to attend the fentanyl awareness forum at Crossroads last night, and I'm really pleased with the attendance of the community, the interaction that we had, the efforts of the staff to put on the forum, but also to encourage a lot of support groups to come in and be available for the community that came out. I'd love to see more participation. It was an incredible event, and I was really happy to be a part of it.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. Director Kincaid?
I don't have a lot to say today other than Happy Pie Day tomorrow, St. Patrick's Day on Sunday. So exciting mini holidays, I guess, if you will. That's it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Just a couple of things real quick. Still looking for feedback on our July retreat on dates in July. Obviously, July is busy for everybody, so dates that work for the board here in July for our retreat. We can talk offline, just send me an email or something about that. And then second, I just wanted to talk really quick about a cool moment I had. I had to have some work done at my house here recently. And so I had to call a plumber and I had to call an electrician to come in and help with the house. And I'm staring, well, two younger gentlemen, I almost called them kids, but they're two younger gentlemen came to the house, and I'm staring at both of them. I'm like, man, both of these kids look familiar. My wife always tells me, you act like you know everybody. I'm like, no, these two kids really look familiar. And so they do the work. They do a fantastic job, very pleasant, easy to deal with. And as one of the kids, there I go, when the gentleman was leaving, I said, I just can't help but think I know you. And he was like, oh yeah. He's like, I'm Dimitri and that's Dason. We graduated from the high school together. You handed both of us our diploma. And I was like, you've been here 2 hours. You never reminded me I handed, and they're like, I didn't know if you remember me. And I'm like, that's why I've been creepy staring at you the whole time that you've been here. But I was just saying, like, how did you, one was a journeyman electrician, the other was already about to take his test to be a journeyman plumber. And they were just talking about the road that they went from high school and they went into the trade school and just kind of the things that they've done. The Dason, who was the electrician, is just about to open up his own residential electrical company. And I was just like, wow, you guys are so cool. And I was like, would you ever be interested in coming back and just talking at the high school or something like that, to just talk about the road that you guys had and how you got here and and how you got involved in the trade? Because I bet you there's people out there that don't think, oh my goodness, I could be 22 years old and have this fantastic career and all of these things, if the route that I decide to go isn't the college route, if I want to go into a skilled trade or something like that. And they both said emphatically that they would be willing to do. And it was just a touchy moment of how products from our system go out to the world as we have tried to do to equip them to be prepared for the world and have success and still live in the area and work in the area and all of that stuff. It was a really surreal meaning, and it reminded me of why we do this, right? It's certainly not for the friends. It's not for the pay, right? It's to send out into the world good kids that are equipped and ready to do the things that they need to do. So it was just a kind of a proud papa moment that I wanted to share with you as a pseudo papa to both of them. So thank you for letting me wax a little poetic about it. Anything else? Any other comments or anything else? I have some more stuff I'll share once we get down the ledge report. I'm sure you guys are all ready for an update on that. So we'll move on to item 3A, the main course tonight. We have our fabulous principal Paige and our very, very fabulous, I wanted to give you more adjectives, assistant principal, Ms. Vo, who are going to give us an update on Monte Cristo. So take it away. And you can remind how I noticed that you guys were dressed alike and all those things.
We are dressed alike, so please try not to confuse us. Thank you for joining us this evening at Monte Cristo Elementary. Welcome, Board of Directors, Cabinet leaders, and community members. At Monte Cristo Elementary, this year continues to be a change and transformational year. We welcomed a new assistant principal, Mrs. Vo, enrolled new students, and added a few staff members. We continue to enroll more students, and our school is more diverse, especially with Hispanic students. When there is a change at our school, we need to work diligently to ensure everyone feels a sense of belonging, safety, and trust. In addition, Mrs. Vo and I are responsible for providing supports and coaching to our new and current staff. We continue to focus on closing the achievement gaps, such as our subgroup, students with disabilities. Please keep in mind that this work cannot be done alone. It takes a team of committed school leaders, adults, and students, and a passionate staff to bring positive change. Our leadership and equity team, PLC, professional learning communities, PBIS, positive behavioral interventions and supports team, attendance team, school-wide interventions team, office team, the MCE Associated Student Body, MCE Boosters Club, community members, and families contributed to everything within these school walls. This is why we have made the progress that we have made. The Monte Cristo teams are focused on social emotional learning, bringing clarity to instruction and learning, and tightening up our behavioral management systems. From our smiles and positive energy, you could never tell that we put a lot of efforts, even though there are hardships and challenges, to keep the momentum of positive changes and progress. Collaboration and consensus are hard when there are many opinions and viewpoints. But good instructional practices with consistent professional learning community collaboration pushed us forward, which leads us to our celebrations of high growth in the 22-23 Smarter Balanced Assessment. As a reminder, for our 22-23 school improvement plan goals, we honed in on our Tier 1 in iReady goals in math, reading, and special education data. In math, we aspired to reach 50% from 36%. In math, special education, our goal was 18% from 12%. In reading, we aspired to reach 65% from 50%. And in special education reading, our goal was 28% from 21%. Although we made growth in our iReady data, we did not accomplish our iReady goals, but we were very, very close. For the 22-23 iReady data results, math tier 1 level was 44%. Special education in math was 16%. Reading tier 1 level was 51%. Special education reading was 25%. The incline of growth is beginning to take place at Monte Cristo Elementary, and we can only continue to move forward with this momentum. In addition, this is the same year that we moved our school from a tier 2 to a tier 1, which was identified as a compounded school by the state of Washington because we were a Title I school last year. We contribute our progress to high functioning professional learning communities and the intense focus on bringing clarity to the classroom through learning targets and success criteria.
Thank you, Mrs. Nguyen. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be with you today. Monte Cristo school data for the Math iReady typical and stretch growth goal in the spring of 2023 and winter 2024 is on the screen. Typical growth demonstrates the average annual growth for students who start at a similar level of proficiency, and stretch growth is a more ambitious goal that demonstrates the amount of growth a student needs to be on the path to grade level proficiency. Looking deeper at this data on the screen, we see that our progress prediction for Math iReady shows an upward trend in math stretch growth data of 44% by spring of 2024. And we're so excited to share this is a 28% increase from spring of 2023. We based this calculation on our current winter Math iReady progress of 39%, added to the 5% average growth made in each quarter, fall, winter, and spring of 2023. Now, on the next slide, as you can see from this slide, we're also making gains in reading, iReady diagnostic, typical growth, and our progress prediction here is that by spring of 2024, we will see 65% of students in grades 3 through 5 achieving the school goal. Our progress prediction for the school math, iReady typical growth goal in special education math is 55% by spring of 2024. And our challenge is to continue this upward trend of typical growth on the spring iReady math diagnostic. Over time, we are showing an incline in our school data. On this slide, the reading iReady special education typical growth is 51% from the winter iReady diagnostic data. And our progress prediction for reading by spring of 2024 is 76%, achieving typical growth in reading. This shows an upward trend from 75% last year, and that is a great sign. We are showing a pattern of increase in our school data, and this slide highlights our projected growth, comparing it to the possibilities of our smarter balanced assessment data. And as you can see on this slide for iReady reading, projected proficiency for SBA, Monte Cristo is already projected closely at 43% towards achieving end of the school year district-wide SMARTY goal for SBA ELA of 46.7%. So we are already very close to our goal. This percentage will fluctuate as students complete their iReady diagnostic assessment, and we are positive that gains will be made on our SBA data. Reviewing each grade level's percentage for proficiency, we have made gains in all grade levels, and that's a celebration for our students, our staff, and our families.
Congratulations, teachers, staff, and
Congratulations.
students. We're so proud of you. In 2022-2023, 72.7% of our students were attending 90% or more of their school days. To increase our attendance percentage, we created a plan to get our students to school, such as regular attendance phone calls, personal connections with students as they enter the school and throughout the day, an eye-catching attendance bulletin board with regular school announcements and positive attendance reinforcements and incentives. We also recognize that some families still have barriers, such as transportation, childcare, and work schedules. We want to give a shout out to Ms. Megan Rice, who's over there, and our staff for their efforts with our school attendance progress. Currently, our attendance data is holding high 80% and 90%. On the top right there. This is evidence of attendance improvements at our school. Students cannot learn if they are not at school. We are using our best strategies to get students to school on a regular basis. When students are at school, we are able to provide social emotional learning, which includes mindfulness strategies in the classroom, specific support groups such as friendship groups, student check-ins, Second Steps curriculum, the Champion Buddy program, and PBIS Positive Behavioral Interventions System. When we had an overabundance, well, this year we had an overabundance of families joining our classes for field trips this school year, in addition to our family night events. The behavior referrals for the 2022-2023 was 2,688 referrals. This year's data is 288 behavioral referrals. A big shout out to Ms. Michelle Burge for supporting students in the Success Room. Teachers are implementing strategies to decrease behaviors and to keep students in class learning. At Monte Cristo Elementary, many of our teachers are implementing the walk to read intervention and focused instruction time, which consists of small targeted intervention groups. In addition to our LAP, Learning Assistance Program groups, we are preparing our students also for the SBA by implementing SBA interim simulations that involve review of content, learning online tools, problem-solving strategies, and building up focused stamina. We are grateful for the support that we are already receiving, such as having an assistant principal, bringing in increased security measures to our school, visibility of our board members and school leaders, and open communication taking place in our community. Monte Cristo Elementary needs support in solving our parking lot issues due to space and increased enrollment. Our families and community members are frustrated with the traffic congestion and the multiple issues every day. Please support us in planning for increased enrollment numbers. We do not have any more classrooms for students, and some of our employees are in custodial closets for office spaces. During assessment times, which is approaching, the principals give up their offices to accommodate small group assessments. Furthermore, we need assistance in creating awareness about the impacts of drugs and social media influences. We are asking families to be more aware of their children's friendship circle. Plus, keep marijuana, vape pens, and weapons locked up. We see it affecting our students at the elementary level. And at last, our audacious ask. We are asking for a dean of students, on-site math coach, a math resource room with games for our students to check out, an electronic reader board that translates in different languages, an early childhood campus or space, and additional space for our Monte Cristo students and staff. I know this is an audacious ask, and we understand what that word means, but we thought, why not? It wouldn't hurt to let everyone know that we would love this for our students, our learning community, so we can move forward with the momentum of closing the achievement gaps. Before we end, I do want to give a big thanks to our office team that is here to support us. Thank you so much. And I want to give big shout out to our staff that I know are sitting behind that screen watching us tonight. Great job, you guys. We're so proud of you.
Thank you, guys. You're awesome.
Thank you for listening, everyone. Now's the time for questions.
Yeah, I'll first go to Dr. Im if you had anything to add or.
Sure, not a question, but just a couple of comments. Monte Cristo is a special place, and the two leaders have developed a culture where they're having tough conversations and they're starting to see the fruits of those tough conversations because there's a change in action. And part of that is certainly the walk to read and the other interventions. So I'm really proud of you and the entire staff, because you're seeing those movements on the scale because of those conversations and those decisions. And ultimately, those decisions are what's best for students, not what's convenient for the adults. So thank you for being bold and courageous in leading that and your entire team. The second is, if students aren't here, they can't learn. And so we started this year making attendance such a priority. And you were doing it even last year, but I think it's so cool for a parent to drive up and they see that sign of what yesterday's attendance was. That's a real celebration, and it's a visible reminder for the parents to say, yeah, I better get my student here. And then related to that is they've been bold to activate the Becca board. So when we have some chronic absenteeism, schools are really required to have a community engagement board, which is not punitive. It's really just bringing in families and students to say, how can we help you? What are the barriers that are there? But if it does continue, they do end up before a judge. And Melanie and I have both been to court, and there have been some of our younger students there. And again, tough conversations, but sometimes that's what it takes. And I know of one case where it was such a success. So I appreciate those efforts as well.
Thank you, Dr. M. Board, questions, comments?
Looking at the numbers over the attendance, and I appreciate that, Dr. M. You mentioned that, but it is still disturbing to know that we have so many students that aren't making at least the 90%. Because without being here, I agree that learning isn't possible. So I appreciate all the work you guys are doing to try to get those numbers up. I hope that the community can work together and really push for better attendance in all of our schools.
Kincaid, anything?
I think everything sounds awesome. It sounds like you guys are, taking it every day and everybody's, on the same page and working together, and you can see that with all of your numbers and everything. So I think that's awesome.
I have a question and a comment, but first I'll start with a comment. Appreciate the presentation. I think of you guys as, I was gonna say Batman and Robin, but I feel like when you use that dynamic duo, peanut butter and jelly. How about that? You just go so well together, the two of you, and I really appreciate all the hard work that you guys have done, and the growth shows. One of the most encouraging, well, two of the most encouraging things you said is really leaning into those dynamic PLCs. That I've always felt very confident that if we get our amazing teachers all in one room and we collectively decide, here's where we're rowing and here's where we need to focus, that there was no hill that they couldn't climb. And that plus the parent engagement, I think is check. And I think, outside of obviously the hard work from people that are in the room and that are watching and not, that are still in the building though here every day, that I think that's some of the reason why we're seeing some of that positive movement. So really appreciate from the bottom of my heart everything you guys are doing. And it's showing in the numbers. So appreciate that. The one question I have, and actually it might be to you, Dr. I'm on the parking lot issue. I know before we got into the conversation of, a couple other things that we had, I was in a couple of different conversations about parking lot changes, and the city, I think, was in one, and I think I heard there was a couple of options, and then I don't know what the finality of that is. Are those conversations we need to pick up again, or where did we end off on that?
Well, there are a couple things that we discussed. We did visit with leaders of the church across the street, and they were very gracious to say, you need to use this even as a holding spot. And I know that there are parents who park over there and wait for their child. But we also involved the city and even had a traffic study done. And the recommendations that they were making certainly would involve some capital outlay. And so that's part of when we had BLRB come on board, that's part of that master plan. So it's something that's there, but it's something that when that day comes, when we talk about bonds, would be included. The other factor is we are certainly looking at the space issues at Monte Cristo, and we're looking at some different strategies, and I think there'll be some relief with that, and that's something to be shared later down the line. But I do think there's some relief coming.
Okay. Relief with the redesign something, or?
Well, just with the configuration of the school.
Got it. So and maybe you don't know fully, which is fine. We don't have to go super deep, but are we Is that gonna happen this school year? We looking at?
We're looking at 24-25. I'm just providing a little relief.
Okay, and the only reason I bring it up is one of the options I thought, oh, that might work with, and not have a cost was. If I remember correctly, and my memory is not great, we talked about maybe like a queue line or something at the church, and then kind of like a line that would direct across the street, and like you were saying, they were nice enough. Is that something, it sounds like that they're having a consistent issue, is that something maybe we need to continue the conversation on to get them something this year, or do you feel? And an answer later is fine, by the way.
I'm comfortable with just us getting through these last 12 weeks.
Got it.
With a plan for 24-25 that, again, will have some relief.
Okay, got it. Well, the good news is there's conversations happening to help with that traffic, because it is an issue. I've been caught in that traffic once or twice myself, and it's not fun at all. Any other questions, Danica, Ariel? Do you guys have any questions or anything?
I just would like to say that it seems like you guys are very focused on growth, and I think that is amazing. I have a younger cousin who goes here, and I see that in her also as well. So I just wanted to say you guys are doing an incredible job, and thank you.
Great.
It's the team. We
Yes,
cannot do this alone.
yes, all of you.
Yes.
Well, I think you guys can sit down, or if you, I know it's been a long day, if you want to go ahead and dismiss, we obviously, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the agenda, but if you want to go ahead and get home to your families, you certainly can. Really appreciate you coming out.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Marshall comes up. Let me do a sure. Okay. Thanks. All right, so we'll move on to item 3B, which is business report, and I'll turn it over to Dr. M.
Sure. This isn't our typical business report where we're talking monthly expenses and that sort of thing, but this is something that we were asked to come to the board pretty much quarterly, just to give an update specifically on our state of our finances, our fund balance, and Marshall's going to come up and present on this. We started our year certainly with a very aggressive 9% fund balance. We're not going to end up in that zone. We're going to end up better off than we were last year. But Marshall's going to go through some stats. He'll probably go through the first slides pretty quickly and then do a deeper dive on some of the things that have impacted our budget and our where we are today.
And this is the same format that we did back in November, December, when we kind of gave kind of a first quarter update of where we think we're going and why we think we're getting there. And it's the format that was kind of asked for last year, that we actually presented goals of how we're getting to 9% fund balance. We presented our methods for tracking those goals. And we said we'd come back quarterly at least and present how we're doing against our goals and our metrics. And so this is the same format as last time. There's one additional slide that I slipped in after I sent the packet to you guys. It's like number 11 or so. It's kind of a why we're missing. It's a kind of a line item summary of some big hit items that were just probably not easy to plan for. So as a reminder, when setting up our 9% fund balance, we said we were going to monitor enrollment to ensure that we had appropriate staffing and not overreact to that bubble of people that enroll first before the drops come over the summer. So we're going to do that. We're going to optimize our K-3 class size because our K-3 class size were pretty low compared to our surrounding districts. We're going to optimize our secondary class sizes because those were also pretty low. We're going to monitor and reduce the extra hours that we're allowing. We're going to reduce district-wide support costs. We're going to reduce paraeducators to better align with neighboring districts and to the recommendations from the WASA audit. We're going to try and contain escalating special ed costs. And we were going to achieve a 7% fund balance. We had a budget for 9. We thought we could fall back on 7 and then get to 10% in 24-25. So enrollment started out pretty low this year. For whatever reason, our first count was 2206. Our last count is 2292. Our last count is right at budget. Our first count, we had kids that just didn't show up that first month. Our second count jumped up to 2242 or something. I just have our first count and our last count just to make the slide more readable. But our funding is based on the average year-long enrollment. So when you have that 40 kids that for whatever reason didn't show up that first month of school, we're spending the rest of the year trying to recover from that because it becomes an average. The numbers don't go up that high when you start that low. So our average for the year right now is 2257. I'm projecting based on our current enrollment levels that will pull that average up to 2270. Part of the reason for the lower enrollment is we made a conscious decision not to do ITK this year, transitions to kindergarten, because of space and because we were uncertain of future funding and didn't want to get this program embedded in our culture only to have to pull it back. To offset we saw that kind of enrollment was going to hit where it was going to hit, so we held off on hiring 3 teaching positions, which saved us enough money to kind of offset the enrollment loss. Our DD pre numbers started out a little low this year, and they've been kind of slow to get up to the numbers we budgeted for because we've had a lot of evaluations to do of students, and we did not do those as quickly as we could have. Trying to optimize our K-3 class size. You can see that before the rules were in place back in 2021, we were at 18.44. 21-22, we're at 16.32. 22-23, 16.27. So that's really carrying about 2.5 more teachers than we need to be in compliance with the state. This year, we're at 16.9. 16.9 is about as good as you can get. You know, we're not having to give back any money to the state for apportionment. They fund us at 17-1. If we choose to have higher class sizes than that, they reduce our funding. If we choose to have lower class sizes than that, they don't increase our funding, they just fund us at 17-1. So this saved us about $250,000 in the district, and we're seeing those savings now. We tried to better align our middle school and high school class sizes to what the contract language allows and to what the surrounding districts have. Our class sizes are still much lower than our surrounding districts. Middle school stayed fairly flat. High school is up to 26.2. Crossroads is at about 19. Some work can be still done at middle school and high school. Crossroads is probably where it needs to be based on it being an alternative school. We really want to get as close to 28 of that middle school, high school as possible to maximize our funding. We're funded at about 28 per class, and that's if we only pay our staff what the state funds us for. We pay our staff higher than what the state funds us for. So, but 28 is a good goal to shoot for. But in just increasing the class sizes as we did to still really small numbers, but we saved about $900,000 this year, and that's translating into actual savings.
How are you figuring out the average on the class sizes, just out of curiosity? So
We
are you
get
taking every class size and then just kind of averaging out for every class?
Yeah, we get a list of every teacher, the classes they teach, and then we average out what that is.
Okay.
We were gonna monitor and reduce extra hours. Kind of mixed, this kind of an eye chart, that's why you have it printed out in front of you so you can maybe look at it a little better. It was also, this slide was on your packet, but you know, we've reduced extra hours by $84,000 through 6 months. So that's a success, but it's kind of hit or miss. There's a little more extra hours than we were anticipating at Mountain Way, especially for substitute costs, for subbing in paras for open positions. Overload is a little high in some places. Working on balancing schedules constantly to try and reduce overload. Kind of a mixed, but overall saving, we're $84,000 better through the first 6 months than we were last year. So we were gonna reduce some district-wide support, so we reduced one administrator, saving the district $250,000. We reduced one supervisor, saving the district $150,000. We reduced one TOSA. This slide's the same as last time. Although we wanted to reduce our total para hours, but we were not able to do that. They're actually increasing a little bit. And there's still overwhelming requests for more para time. and supports in the classrooms. So this slide, the only update on this slide was the total pair hours are higher than they were last projection. But these reductions in district-wide support costs are translating through to the budget. The real focus was going to be on containing special ed costs, but we really haven't had much success in containing special ed costs. We put things in place to reduce special ed costs going into this year, but instead of reducing costs, we've actually increased them. The increase is it's trending about 1.33 more than last year, and $2 million more than budget. Our safety net forecast, we're gonna probably land somewhere around 1.2 million, and we're probably gonna land somewhere around 325,000 community impact. That's up about $300,000 from last year, so that's a help, but we are spending $2 million to get 300,000. We have several really high need students that have moved into the district, and we have a lot of one-on-one nurses for some high need students that are costing us about $500,000. Needs to be a challenge, and there's a deeper breakdown of this on a future slide coming. So I included a detailed revenue forecast for how I'm estimating our revenues will come in for the rest of the year. So I'm estimating about $41 million in revenues. Lots of random categories, but this is just kind of the categories I used to try and figure out how much revenue we're going to have. Expenditure forecast. We think we're going to land around, well, the forecast is for 39.7. I think put a buffer in of $550,000 for unknowns. So I'll request for paras. We have teachers going out on leave that we're going to have to pay them for while they're on leave and pay to have somebody else teach their class. Just a lot of unknowns that you don't know until they get here. So put in a little cushion of $550,000 to handle the unknowns. We're on track to reduce our expenditures by $1 million from last year. We're doing really well outside of special education and nursing. We're projecting, kind of have a little fund balance table on the right there. We're projecting to end the year at $1.2 million fund balance, which is at 3%, increasing our fund balance by $750,000 from last year. Kind of projecting some increases in apportionment due to the trending upward of our enrollment, and the safety net and community impact is a projection. This next slide kind of shows, this is the new slide for this year, the new slide from the packet. This shows kind of the impact of what these kind of unknowns that have hit us is causing. So right now we're projecting a 3% fund balance and 1.2 million. That's because we were spending $100,000 more than we anticipated on paraeducators. That contributes, and these are all due to IEPs. This contributes a 0.25% increase or decrease in our fund balance. We have 3 new students that moved into our area from other places that require full-time direct support nurses. That's $500,000. Our liability insurance increased by 40%. This is common statewide. The state gave us 2.9% increase in the funding for liability insurance. So they gave us about, I don't know, $6,000 to pay for our $220,000 increase in liability insurance. Same problem everybody else is having. Our new transportation contract and the cost of fuel has increased transportation by about 14%. That's contributing 0.6%. The big contributors are the out-of-district placements of students that have such high needs that we can't even serve them here in Granite Falls. That's increased by $600,000 over last year and over budget, and it's the biggest number we've ever had. And then I've got that unforeseen of $550,000, which is contributing 1.4%. And then there's because our preschool kids weren't identified as quickly as we would have liked, we're missing out on about $120,000 in special ed revenue for the preschool. So that contributes 5.87%. If all those things didn't happen, And hard to say that we could have really planned for any of those things. If all those things would have not happened, our fund balance would be, we'd be shooting for about a 8.9% fund balance this year is where we'd be trending.
Marshall, before you leave this slide, I think words really matter. And I want to be clear that we don't overuse the word special education. These are student services.
Right.
And so contracted nurses, some might be related to an IEP, but some of them aren't. I mean, it's just a medical need that falls to a school district. Transportation, that's a student service. Now, it doesn't fall under that department, but it's a service that we provide. And so a real easy thing to say is, oh, that's darn special education again, but it really isn't.
It's not, it's student need, it's legitimate student needs that we did not foresee happening when we created the budget.
Did you have anything else to add, Doctor?
Just
Yeah, go ahead.
finish two more slides real quick.
Please.
Um,
Yeah.
Updated the 6-year fund balance, the 22-23s, the way, so last slide I had for this back in December, 22-23 was just projected year ends for other districts. These are the actual, how they ended their 22-23 school year. And then the 23-24 school year is actually what's in their budget. They may or may not hit these targets for 23-24, but it's what they're budgeting. And that steep downward trend continues for most districts. We're still projected to grow. If we end the year at 3%, we'd be the same as Mukilteo, we'd be better than Seattle, same as Olympias, a little worse than Edmonds. You know, we'd be the lower end of the spectrum, but we'd be one of the few, if not only districts to be growing our fund balance. And inflationary costs are overwhelming school districts right now. And I know Carl's going to probably talk about it in his ledge update, but the legislative session that just ended was, we all had very low expectations for school funding, but they actually managed to fall below even our expectations. I think it was a really disappointing session. Not a whole lot of interest in helping schools get out of this inflationary problem that we're having. So in conclusion, you know, it's a challenging statewide environment with grow fund balances. We're successfully educating the majority of our budget controls, and it's nice that this is presented at Monte Cristo because in spite of I mean, we focus a lot on our budget issues, but there are a lot of amazing things happening in this district in spite of our tight budgets. You know, there's growth everywhere, there's participation everywhere, there's school spirit everywhere. More kids are involved in things, more kids are excelling. The things going on in the district are fantastic. Our enrollment's slightly below budget, but is up from 2023, and we're expecting an increase next year. The enrollment miss was offset by holding off on hiring teachers. Inflation is a challenge everywhere. And we're currently working on plans to do further reductions for next year to help grow the fund balance. And that's it.
Appreciate the update, Marshall. So I guess I'll start here. There's a number of things in here that I certainly think that we should go into a little bit deeper, but I recognize that regular board meeting is probably not the place to have that. So I'd like to have a study session to go over, because there's 3 or 4 things in here we could talk offline, and I'm just like, well, tell me more about that. Like, I'd really like to kind of get a little bit more in the weeds of it. And I don't want to minimize, I've said it before the last meeting, growing our fund balance in this climate is still a very good thing that obviously a lot of school districts aren't going to have, but we're still falling short of some expectations, board policy and stuff like that. So I don't want to belabor the point, but certainly want to talk through that. And then the only other question I have is, I would agree that the outcomes for this session were underwhelming, but there was an increase to SPED, the 6% to 16. Is that, I know that that's not a huge hope for us. I even gave numbers last time, but is there I guess, have you done the numbers for next year?
It's about $250,000 for us. So I mean, it helps.
Yeah.
It almost offsets our increase in insurance costs.
And that doesn't start till 23, 24, right? If I'm
Right.
Yeah, okay, so
24.5.
24, 25. That's what I meant, I'm sorry. And I don't want to jump in front of any board members. If you guys want to go deep now, I just figured that that's probably the best time to really kind of spend some time and tear through this in some greater detail. And you guys can certainly disagree with me if you feel it a different way.
No, I agree. I think, yeah.
That way, Peter and maybe Director Beach could be here as
Yeah.
well, because I'm sure they'd have some questions and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
Dr. M, can we look at the schedule?
Yeah, we could, and I have two things I'd like to share, if that's all right.
Please.
And that is, our team has started obviously looking at 24, 25. And so we would like a little bit more time, because at that meeting, we would like to come to you with some ideas to build that up for next year. And so, maybe you and I can talk offline, what's a reasonable time for the team to get together and have some ideas.
Yep.
And then second, Dana and I were on a ESD call last week. And it was interesting, the unrest among the superintendents, and I won't identify the district, but basically one district is going to declare war on the legislature next year. And I think it would be advantageous to sort of take
Join them.
that mindset, because one of the things I brought up, I will say that, Lake Stevens, they were joshed a little bit for being, okay, you've got everything. He goes, well, we don't have everything. We're gonna be into single digit fund balance. And of course, Dan Chapwick and I look at each other and laugh, because we live in that world. And, but there are more and more districts that are going to be dropping significantly. And we are one of the few that are growing, not at the rate that we would like. But the one district that said, we're going after the legislature, they are going to spend time and resources to make that happen. That, I think it got other districts fired up, and I think it's a path we ought to follow as well.
Yeah, I am in a fighting mood, but we can we can talk more about that offline, but I appreciate that. So yeah, let's get together and let's figure out a good time to have that, because it would be nice to talk about, what we're going to do this year, and then maybe even start looking at next year too. And I'd love to have our other two directors there so that their voices could be heard too, if you guys are good with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
That's outstanding. Marshall, I don't want to shortchange you. Do you have anything else you want to share or anything? Okay. Thank you.
Marshall.
I appreciate the update. Board report. I know Peter's not here. Do you have anything to share for community?
I do not. I've been dying for the last 3 months. The month of February, I had no voice whatsoever. So
Still hear it crack.
yeah,
every once in a while.
yeah, by the end of the day, it's not good. So, no, I haven't been out in the community much at all. So I
Okay.
don't have anything this.
No, not a problem. Appreciate you doing that. Ledge report, Marshall did a good job kind of depicting. I mean, I would say that I am by nature optimistic, but working with government has made me more pessimistic by the day. So I would say that my expectations were low. But there were some glimmers of hope, right? There initially, it seemed like there was going to be a hard push to remove the cap. And it seemed like there was maybe some wind under those sails. And I was like, oh, this could happen. And then it was like, well, 17.25, right? And I thought, oh, well, there's something there. We didn't end there. It's going to be increased from 15.25 to 16, so a 0.75 increase. The biggest problem that I have with that is it scares me that there's these small incremental moves on SPED funding, because I just feel a time next session when they basically start from scratch in the budget, they're like, well, we gave it to you twice, right? Like, you're done now, right? Like, that seems to be kind of the, oh, you're coming back again, we've done it. Not saying that's where we end up, obviously, the messaging doesn't change, but it is a little annoying, and I could wax poetic about that for 2 hours, but I won't. Yeah, the changes that have happened aren't really going to be, I would say, significant for us, especially kind of from those highs, unfortunately. I mean, I'll take $250,000 more if you're going to slide a check of $250,000 over, but that I'll accept that money, not with you feeling like you really significantly answered the problem, right? You're just kind of pushing the can down the road. As Marshall said, our insurance costs have increased so much that it's essentially a wash. So I thought about how to sugarcoat that and say that in a different way, but there it is. I've got no fancy words to cover that. I feel like, as I've all consistently felt, that a lot of our concerns are going unheard. Now, I don't know if this is a positive or a negative, but just as kind of in the world of things, Tim Garshow, who was the essentially the head of WASDA, Washington State School Directors Association, resigned. He was recruited to go to WASA, which is the Washington Administrators Association. So kind of a sister organization, but he's no longer going to be WASDA. That's a huge loss. Tim Garshaw was amazing. I enjoyed every interaction with him. I always felt like he did a good job for advocating for all 296 schools in the state of Washington, and that he played fair ball. And that's even when he was for something I was for or against something I was for. I always felt like he played really, really fair ball. And it's going to be a big loss. I know WASP is in the process of recruiting another, they don't call it superintendent, what do they call it? Like
Their executive director.
Executive director, yeah. And so I'm optimistic that they'll find someone, but WASB is very key on allowing for smaller districts like us that don't have, some districts hire private lobbyists. I won't name names in school board meetings, but I can tell you that there's districts in Snohomish County that hire out of their own pocket 2 or 3 lobbyists, that's all they do is talk to people at Olympia specifically about what that district needs, right? We aren't that lucky. WASDA is our lobbyist, right? And if WASDA is not effective, if WASDA doesn't have what they need to succeed, then we won't be successful. And so that's the unfortunate reality. So we need WASDA to be strong, and we need WASDA to be collaborative, and we need WASDA to play fair ball, right? And while I will certainly groan that in that broth, they're trying to create a situation where the sea rises and all boats rise. And the reality of the world is that doesn't always work, right? That we have needs that maybe someone else doesn't have, and so. But with that, I certainly will always stand for a strong and productive WASDA rather than the contrary. So. More to come on that. Again, I just kind of wanted to let everybody know. I guess just to leave that just to leave on a good note. So in the first session, this session, they were basically just revising the budget. Obviously, next session, they will start with a brand new budget. I know that there again is going to be a collective push for spend increases and all of the things we've talked about, and hopefully something significant happens there, but we certainly dust ourselves off and go to war again. So any questions or anything? I will say though, just as I'm looking down to Ariel and Danica, which are I am realizing how important student voice is and how much they prefer to listen to you guys rather than me. I've been in spaces with legislators where essentially the students are saying the same thing I've been saying, but I see the lights go on when you guys say it. So one of the things that is on my list for this next coming session is to try to involve students more in those communications, so that it's not Carl Carey, politician or whatever, that they're hearing the people that are impacted and stuff. So I it doesn't specifically have to be you and Danny, but you guys are fantastic. So more to come. I'd love to have you guys go to Olympia with me and talk to them and stuff like that and really talk about the things we need here in Granite. So you guys are just so good stewards of that message.
I think that's brilliant because can you imagine a student coming up and saying, I'm worth 6% less in Granite Falls than I am in Sultan?
Right.
I mean, it's one thing for you to say it, for me to say it, for Waz to say it, but for a student to say it, that'd be powerful.
Yeah, agree 100%. And and it's my fault. I haven't done a good enough job as I'm plowing through, just trying to hard press the message through. So, in every loss, you learn the lesson, and that's the lesson I've learned. So not that we're necessarily losing, but certainly didn't get what we wanted. So. Any questions? I don't want to belabor that point or anything else there. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing great. Okay, hearing nothing, I'll go on items from the floor. Do we have anything, Paris? Okay, appreciate that. Unfinished business, we have 5A, we have none, so we'll move on to new business. 6A, first reading to amend policy 1400, final meeting conduct agenda order of business and forum. Dr. do you mind
Sure.
giving?
Yep, I'll start with the first one, 1400. And this is just meeting conduct and the order. There are some procedural things or really nothing of substance as much as wordsmithing that WASDA has updated. There is one item that we need to check with our legal counsel on. We have a practice of having people who want to speak to us sign up by 3 o'clock. We need to just verify that that's something we can and should do, or whether you just show up and sign up and be able to speak. So we did not include that in this first draft. If it's allowed, we will include it in for the second reading.
So what I'm hearing is you'd like for us to go ahead and approve the first
Please.
reading. If we hear back from legal that that needs to change, we'll change on that.
That's correct.
Okay. Discussion. Do we have any discussion on that, board? Okay, are we ready to make a motion on that?
Sure. I'll make a motion that we pass the first reading of this policy. 1400.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alright.
All right. Dr.
The second one is policy 2004, and we have this, but it's just updated. They're using outdated language where every student shall succeed act. And of course, that's no longer the national name from the Department of Education. So that now they're just saying under federal requirements to make it less specific.
So just wordsmithing changes.
Yes.
Okay. Or any discussion? Okay, are we ready to make a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that we accept the first reading to amend policy 2004 performance improvement goals.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Okay. Dr. Rim, talk to us about policy 31.
The third one's interesting. We had adopted this in 2003, and then they came out with what looks like quite a few changes on non-resident students. But they are using more precise language such as home-based instruction, equal basis. And then they used to have a bulleted list of why you might not accept a out-of-district student, and now it's more in paragraph form. Again, not really anything of great substance as much as changing its format.
Thank you, Dr. M. Board, any discussion? Okay, are we ready to make a motion?
Sure. We'll make a motion to pass first reading of policy 31 to 41 as proposed.
My motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Sorry about that. I had two thoughts at the same time. Okay, Dr. M, last one.
And you can see here, they're just changing shall and will and from and or, but the one line that they did insert is consistent with district procedures. And this has to do with improper government action and reporting it. And it makes reference to procedures, and we do have those procedures in place, but it's just adding that phrase.
Okay. Any discussion, board?
Mhm.
All right, we ready to make a motion?
Yes, I make a motion that we accept the first reading to amend policy, reporting improper governmental action, whistleblower protection.
Sandy, motion's been made. Is there a second? Second. Motion was made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, pass unanimous. All right, we're down the consent agenda, and I know that we had an addition. Is that it, Paris? Just the one addition in the board packet? Okay. So I'll like to make a motion that we accept the consent agenda with the addition included in the board packet. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So we will adjourn the meeting today at 7:05. There is no executive session. Thank you. Thank you.